Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today Fantasy Flight released quite a few spoilers for Spark of Hope. So first up here we're going to be looking at Kylo Ren, Bound by the Force. 11 health, 11 or 15 points. 1 melee, 2 melee, discard resource special and blank. He's an apprentice. And as a power action you can move one shield from this character to another character. Then if you move that shield to a hero, deal 1 damage to a character. So I can imagine Kylo wouldn't be terrible in draft. So you can, play Kylo in draft and then be able to move shields between him and hero characters. And if you do that, you get to do an extra damage. And special, deal 2 damage to a character. If any of his damage is blocked, reroll this die instead of removing it. So it has a similar special to his lightsaber from Awakenings, which was you would do a special. I think it did 2 damage, but it was basically deal 2 damage, and then if any of the damage was blocked by shields, you get to re-roll the die back into your pool. So, looks like 3 damage sides here, so we have 2 melee damage sides, and the special, which also does damage. 15 points is pretty good, I think. We'll be getting into more cards in the rest of this video that will synergize really well with him. So 11 health, so again we have the 11 and 11, so the 1-to-1 ratio on his health to his points. So I think this Kylo could be pretty interesting, and then also it has the apprentice character subtype, so things that will have you spot apprentices or do extra things if you have an apprentice in play will work with Kylo Ren. So that is Kylo Ren, Bound by the Force. We're going to move into our next card. We'll be right back with that. And next up, we have Rey, Bound by the Force. 11 health, 11 or 15 points, depending on how you want to run her. So again, the 1-to-1 health to point ratio. 1 melee, 2 melee, shield, resource, special, and blank. An apprentice character, so things will trigger off of her being an apprentice. As a power action, reroll a character die, or turn a villain character die to a side showing a value of 0. So, like blanks and specials count as 0, and there's also some cards now that actually have 0 value on other things that allow you to resolve modifiers with them, like the Nexus of Power card and all that. And special, give 2 shields to a character. Then if that character has 3 or more shields, reroll this die instead of removing it. So, like Kylo, she has a special that will, once you resolve the special, you then, if a certain condition is met, so Kylo's damage being blocked by shields, and hers is a character having 3 or more shields, her die gets re-rolled instead of getting removed. So again, 2 damage sides on Rey, 3 damage sides on Kylo, and again, 11 or 15 points, again, 11 health. So I think this Rey could be decent. The power action is interesting because you can basically use it to blank like the new Vader. You can blank it out, because if you remove the new Vader's die, he can power action it back in. This will allow you to turn that die to a blank, so then they'll have to either discard to reroll or somehow use another card to actually turn his die, and so on. Her special is pretty good. Gives a character 2 shields, so it could work well with Qui-Gon and other characters that have a benefit to having shields on them. And then you get to reroll the die if that character has 3 or more shields. So that is Rey. We're going to move into our next card. And next up we have Temporary Truce. It's a plot, 0 points. So I think this is the first plot that's hasn't added or subtracted points to your team. Blue neutral plot. You can only include Kylo Ren and Rey on your team. You can include villain and hero cards in your deck. You cannot include gray cards in your deck. So this basically allows you to use the Kylo and Rey we just talked about together in the same deck. You get access basically to blue hero and blue villain cards in your deck. You're not going to be able to can't use grays. But I like that it also doesn't specify which Rey or which Kylo, so it looks like it will work with obviously the new ones that were just revealed, but also the Rey and Kylo from the Awakening starter sets, or the 2-player game as well. So the 2-player game will still be standard legal, or is still standard legal, so you can use those Kylo and Rey in standard, and use Temporary Truce on them as well to have them on the same team, which I think is a pretty interesting card. So you can, again, both the new Kylo and new Rey are 15 points at elite, so for 30 points combined. This plot doesn't add or subtract any points. Only limitation really is you're not going to be able to include gray cards, but then you get full access to, you know, all the blue hero cards, all the blue villain cards, and so on. One issue though is if you play against a player playing two-player edition Kylo, the one that lets you choose a color and reveal a card, and then you do damage if you draw the right color. You're gonna be a bigger target in this deck because your cards are pretty much all going to be blue. You're gonna be all your upgrades are gonna be blue. All your events are gonna be blue. Your supports are gonna be blue. So you do definitely run a risk of taking extra damage to that ability from Kylo from the two-player starter game. But pretty interesting plot. I hope they do more of these 0-point plots in the future that allow you to, you know, cross hero and villain like outside of draft, which is pretty interesting. So that is Temporary Truce. We're gonna move into our next card. And next up we have Thrawn, Grand Admiral, 13 health, 15 or 19 points, red villain, legendary. 2 melee, 3 melee, 2 focus, 2 discard, resource, and blank. He's a leader character, so stuff will trigger off of that subtype. And after you activate this character, you may look at the top 4 cards of a deck, so either yours or your opponent's deck. And as a power action, reveal the top 4 cards of an opponent's deck. You may play an event, reveal this way, and spot that opponent's cards as if they were yours. So right now, or before this card, anything you spotted would have to have been your card. So if it says spotted blue character and you didn't have a blue character, you wouldn't be able to play that event or play a certain card. With this, you can use this power action, reveal the top 4 cards, and let's say they're playing blue, it says spotted blue character, and they have a blue character, you can actually spot their character and then play their event. I imagine you still have to pay the resource cost. It doesn't mention that here, but I imagine you would have to pay any resource costs associated with the event, and then I imagine it also gets discarded, which is going to be really interesting. So easy pickings, for example, you can essentially do this and use your opponent's easy pickings against them. Super thematic toward to kind of like what Thrawn does. The health is really good as well. 19 points, I think is fair because his sides are actually pretty good. The other Thrawn had no damage sides on him at all. He was more like a focus and like focus kind of character. But I like that we get 2 damage sides here, a double focus, a double discard, and a resource side. So every one of his sides, except for the resource, is at least a value of 2. So he can be really good in just getting like a battlefield roll. So, you know, like you roll out 2 of him, let's say you hit both 3 melee sides on him, and you run him with like a single die or something else, you might have a pretty good chance of getting the battlefield just with his dice sides being as high as they are. Again, good health. The abilities are cool, so whenever you activate him, you can look at the top 4 cards of the deck, and then as power action, you can reveal the top 4 of an opponent's deck and use those cards against them, and also spot their characters, or it says spot like a blue carrot card or something like that. You can do that, which is really cool. So that is Thrawn. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Cultural Records. It's a 2 resource cost red villain support. Focus, 2 focus, resource, 2 specials in the blank. After a player plays a copy of a card set aside by the support, you may gain 1 resource or remove a die. And then the special, look at an opponent's hand and set a card from it aside, gain 1 action. So it looks like you're going to look at their hand and grab a card out of it and set it aside. And then if they actually if they somehow get the other copy of that card and play it, since there's already been 1 set aside with this support, you can either gain a resource or remove a die. Really interesting, especially since you are going to be getting knowledge of their hand. There's a card we'll be talking about next that really ties in with Thrawn and with this as you are seeing their hand. So pretty interesting support. So he has some good focus sides here, a resource, and then basically 2 special sides that let you essentially exile something out of your opponent's hand. And then if your opponent plays another copy of whatever was set aside, you either can remove a die or gain a resource. So that is Cultural Records. I think it's pretty cool. We're going to move into our next card. And next up we have Mastermind, 1 resource, red villain upgrade ability, focus, resource, 2 specials in the blank. Special. Name a card, then reveal an opponent's hand and set each copy of the named card from it aside. So this is going to tie in with cultural records. So cultural records, you get to basically look at their hand and set a card aside from it. So you'll get to set one aside, and then you will have knowledge of the other cards in their hand, however that might be. And then when you use the special on Mastermind, you'll be able to name a card that you know is still in their hand, or even multiple copies of it potentially, and then set those copies aside as well. This is, again, a really thematic card for Thrawn. It has some good utility sides on it, so we have the 2 focus sides, or resource side, and then these 2 specials, which will, it's almost like discarding because you're not going to be able to get out of their set aside zone. So you are limiting their options by basically removing cards from the game and then getting knowledge of what's in their hand for future turns. So that is Mastermind. We're going to move into our next card. And next up we have Chief Sherpa, Bright Tree Village Elder, 7 health, 10 or 12 points. We're getting Ewoks. So we have 1 melee, focus, disrupt, resource, special, and blank. He's an Ewok and a leader, so 2 character subtypes there. And after setup, add a set-aside Ewok Warrior, card number 95, to your team. And his special is deal 2 indirect damage to an opponent, or deal 3 indirect damage if you spot 4 Ewoks. We'll get to why you'll be able to pretty easily spot 4 Ewoks when we get to the Ewok Warrior card, because that card was revealed as well. So, again, 7 health for 10. I think for 10 the sides aren't amazing, but I think it's going to be kind of like battle droids. There's going to be just ways to get, there are ways to get multiple of these Ewok Warriors into play, even in the middle of the game. So the sides are alright. So he's got like a damage, a focus, a disrupt, a resource, and the special. So it looks like 2 damage sides if you count the special. So 1 melee and then a 2 indirect side, which could potentially be 3 indirect if you spot 4 Ewoks. So that is Chief Sherpa. We're going to move into our next card. And next up we have the Ewok Warrior, yellow hero, 4 health for 4 points. It's a diceless character. It's an Ewok, so it has that subtype. And include only if you have a unique Ewok on your team. And after you activate this character, you may deal 1 indirect damage to an opponent. So these characters can still activate like normal characters. They just don't have any dice that roll out when they activate. However, you can apply upgrades on them and things like that. So when you activate them, you'll deal that 1 indirect and then roll in whatever the upgrades are from the Ewok Warrior. And these will play well into Chief Sherpa Special, which is basically deal 2 indirect damage or 3 if you spot 4 Ewoks. So if you have Chief Sherpa and 3 of these guys, so 3 of these guys equal 12 points, plus whatever Chief Sherpa's points are. I think it was 10 or 12. So let's say you have a single die Sherpa and 3 of these. You spot all 4 of them and then do extra indirect damage off of Chief Sherpa's special. And the cool thing is once these activate, they'll do a damage as well. They only have 4 health, so they could essentially very easily be defeated with maybe potentially even just like one die, like 1 Vader, like 4 melee can basically just one-shot one of these Ewoks. But it is basically, again, 1-to-1 point ratio. So you have 4 health for 4 points. And you can just get a ton of characters out by using these diceless characters. It's interesting that they're doing characters that can just activate that don't have any dice that go along with them. Again, they don't have a whole lot of health or abilities. These ones will just do an indirect damage when they activate. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the future with other characters that don't have dice and what their abilities might be. Maybe we'll get like Ugnaughts at some point. Who knows? But anyway, that is the Ewok Warrior, and this is the Ewok Warrior that, with Chief Sherpa, you can basically bring in 1 of these from the set-aside zone. So with Chief Sherpa, you automatically get 1 of these guys. So that is the Ewok Warrior. We're going to move into our next card. Next up, we have Ewok Ambush, 0 resources, yellow hero event. Again, has Ambush. Activate 1 of your non-elite characters or up to 3 of your Ewok characters. So essentially, you can roll in or activate 3 Ewoks and then immediately resolve those characters. So let's say you roll in Chief Sherpa. Let's say they do Wicket and you do 1 of the Ewok Warriors. So you basically pay 0 resources, play that. Let's say roll in Chief Sherpa. If they do Wicket in the future, maybe in this set, you roll him in too. and then you roll in or activate one of the Ewok Warriors. You're getting an indirect damage from the Ewok Warrior activating, and then you can immediately go ahead and resolve both Chief Sherpa's dice and Wicket's dice as well. And then it allows you to also activate a non-elite and then get ambush. So this definitely, like, let's say you are again doing like Chief Sherpa and Wicket and the Ewok Warrior. This action gives you basically you're like basically two actions ahead because you are activating up to three of the Ewoks instead of it being one turn to activate one Ewok, second turn to activate another Ewok, third turn to activate the third Ewok, and so on. This allows you to activate up to three of them at a time with ambush, and then you can basically potentially just do a bunch of damage that your opponent won't be able to mitigate. So that is Ewok Ambush. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Chief Sherpas Hut. Two resources. Yellow Hero Support Location. Focus, 2 shields. Resource, special for a resource on the blank. And the special is add a set-aside Ewok Warrior to your team. Discard the support from play unless you spend 3 resources. So it works kind of like the Separatist Landing Craft and the fact that you can add in Battle Droids. This allows you to add one of the Ewok Warrior cards. You do have to pay a resource to do that. And then discard the support or pay 3 to keep it out. So I think the sides are good here. So we have focus, shields, and resources, and a way to bring in additional Ewok Warriors, which could be pretty interesting. Not sure if this is going to be playable, but I think it would be cool just to have an Ewok deck and have this. Isn't going to be fun to be able to create thematic like tribal Ewok deck like they did with Gungans in the last set, and now we're kind of doing that with troopers, and leaders are now starting to be kind of tribal sets as well. Now we can maybe have tribal Ewok decks. So that is Chief Sherpa's Hut. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have the Ewok Bow. 1 resource, upgrade weapon, yellow hero. 1 range, disrupt, shield, resource, and blank. And while this upgrade is on an Ewok, it gains redeploy. So, again, with the Ewok Warriors, you can throw the Ewok Bow on them. When they activate, they'll do their indirect damage and then roll in the die for the Ewok Bow. Once one of those Ewoks gets defeated, you can move it to another character, and then if it's on an Ewok again, you can redeploy it again off of there. I kind of wish they made this card allow you to run 4 copies of it, like what they did with TIE Fighters and X-Wings, because you think most of your Ewoks would be carrying bows anyway. So, and again, their die isn't. I think for 1 resource is pretty good, because you have again 2 damage sides with redeploy, as long as it's on an Ewok. But I think I would have liked them to allow you to include just more than 2 copies in your deck. So like allow you to include maybe like up to 4 of them. One of the other thing I like about it is it's 1 resource. Again, decent damage size for a 1 resource card, and then also works well with override. So like you can basically play an Ewok Bow and override into something better. I like that you can play it on anybody, but if it's on an Ewok, it has an extra ability of being able to be redeployed. So that is the Ewok Bow. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Possessed. This is a downgrade curse. The yellow card out to the left of that is something about light speed. Light speed is the only word I can see clearly in it. I'll move it around, actually, let you see it. So it says something about, looks like light speed, and then we have Rey, Thrawn, and Kylo that we already saw. But anyway, back to this Possessed card. So 3 resources. It's a downgrade curse. Discard this downgrade from play if you do not control a witch. I imagine this is blue villain. As an action, you can exhaust this downgrade to resolve one of the attached character's character dice as if it were in your pool. So you play this on an opponent's character, and then your opponent rolls out. You then play this downgrade on one of your opponent's characters, and then you can exhaust it to resolve that character's dice. So let's say you play this on Vader. They roll in Vader. You exhaust this. You resolve one of Vader's dice against Vader or one of the other characters on that player's team, but you're resolving it as if it were your own. And then Vader doesn't get a power action with it because you're resolving the die. You're not removing it. So Vader allows you to basically re-roll those dice back into your pool through a power action. But the cool thing here is resolving the die against him, and then he doesn't get the power action to back in. Then, though, if they kill off your witch character, you downgrade or you discard the downgrade. So that is it for this video. Um, Again, I'll be doing more videos for Spark of Hope as more and more spoilers get revealed. Hopefully we'll get more pretty soon, but generally the way Fantasy Flight does it is they'll do a somewhat big announcement at first, and then they'll do another big announcement in a few weeks, hopefully sooner. But it may be a few weeks, maybe longer. But anyway, I'll be doing spoiler videos, like basically whenever new cards come out, I'll be doing videos for them. So that's going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.